Hey men's, thems, and toasters, it is Ultimate here. I'm not dead, just no longer interested in Wings of Fire, and unfortunately that was what my entire channel was based on, and the view count on any video is basically guaranteed to be nil if it's not the very specific content that you built your platform on. But I wanted to talk about this game so badly that I just don't care, and I'm doing it anyway. Rest assured that my opinions are very correct, because this is a cat game, and I'm wearing cat ears, which makes me an expert. And joking aside though, I don't actually care if you agree with me or not. This isn't a video meant to convince you. I just wanted to talk about something that I enjoy. This is not a detailed review either. I keep rewriting the script a lot and stuff might be all over the place. I will also almost entirely be focusing on stuff that I like and not like a genuine balanced criticism, because I'm just tired of seeing videos about how much things suck and I want to make something positive. And if that means ignoring the flaws of Orange Cat game, then so be it. If you want the context of the entire experience of this game, I have a playthrough on my channel that I actually posted. You can watch that, or you can watch somebody else's, or you can play the game for yourself. If you don't have time for any of that, which is understandable because it's a game spanning several hours, I will also be explaining the plot as I go along with what I like about it, so you'll probably have enough context to understand it even if you've never played or seen the game. Stray is a third-person adventure game released in 2022 for multiple platforms. Part or perhaps most of what created the initial hype for this game was that you play as an adorable orange cat. There are 12 chapters and you complete puzzles or tasks either by yourself or with the help of supporting characters, also evading enemies along the way on your quest to open the sky. I adore cats, and one of mine is orange as well, so I was immediately intrigued when I started seeing ads for this game. I played the game almost as soon as it came out, and then I replayed it twice to get all of the badges and the lovely golds. Whatever the harness thing is that the cat wears, I have it, you know, and it's great, and hashtag worth it, hours of my life down the drain, it's fine. I then came back to it a couple days ago, and I fell in love with it all over again. Today, I would like to explain what keeps this game so close to my heart. In Stray, you are an orange cat who gets separated from its family. This beginning sequence is one of my favorite introductions to a game because of how it slowly eases you into the story while also showing you the controls, which is not a new thing for games, but I just really like the way that it was done in this particular game. The first chapter is called Inside the Wall. You and your fellow cat family are running, jumping, and generally exploring the area that you call home, which is mostly seems to be like a in-between area with like a bunch of vines and stuff. The environments are absolutely gorgeous, but I'll talk about that later. And then the danger starts. Inevitably, you jump on a pipe in an attempt to follow your little kitty friends, and you fall down into an abandoned area. This starts the next chapter, Dead City, which is surprisingly in a dead city. You know, who would have thought? Not too much actually happens in this chapter except to set up some story and introduce the Zurks, which are tiny bacteria who make adorable noises and devour everything in sight. Me for real. Inside the Dead City, you have to wind around and jump amongst buildings, solving simple puzzles, and generally just traversing the area. This is where you are first introduced to something that I absolutely love about Stray. It uses lighting, more specifically neon signs and other forms of diegetic lighting, to show you pathways or give you hints on where to go. Stray has a lot of areas that feel huge, especially because of how small your little cat body is. But I found myself not getting lost very easily because of the way that it uses lighting to direct your movement. And this is odd for me considering the first time I played Benny and the Ink Machine, I got lost for 45 minutes in the first chapter. Important things are generally designated by the same soft orange glow, which come from signs that seem to make sense to be in the landscape. In the beginning of the game, you can also meow to see certain things light up, which will show you the way to go. This is a really clever way of giving you hints without being annoyingly obvious in dialogue prompts or weird tutorial pop-ups. You can keep the huge scenery without making it too difficult to find your way or trying to block you off to certain areas. This is especially necessary in the two city areas coming up, as those are much larger and require more guidance naturally. next chapter is where we meet our first secondary character, B12. You find what looks to be an old lab and collect power cells to wake up this tiny little drone guy, B12. He has very little memory, but over the course of the story discovers he is the last human who uploaded his consciousness to a computer, and it went wrong and he was stuck for a while, but now he's not. He was apparently trying to find a way to save his family or whatever. It turns out the city you're in now is completely encased in a big-ass dome, because humans fucked up the world and had to protect themselves from their own mess. The outside is no longer dangerous in the present day, however, evidenced by you coming from there, so you've got to find a way to break down the walls and let everyone feel the sun again. Of course, the humans are dead, so who is everyone? Well, it turns out before the plague took all of them, they were like, hey, let's make some robot servants. That sounds great and ethical. After the humans were gone, the robots started getting souls and personalities and mimicking their human creators. More humanoid robots can be difficult to design because you sort of have to straddle the line of looking just human enough to be relatable and put more human personalities in it seeming natural, while not going too far into an uncanny valley sort of deal. And I think the robots in Stray do this really well. The screen faces allow for emotion and character without going into that uncanny valley area, and their movements feel really solid and natural for the most part. I did spend a lot of time in this particular run just staring at them and watching them walk around. In Midtown, a later chapter, you can also walk in front of them and just trip them, which I think is the best thing that they could have added. Each of the robots also has their own personality and a lot of optional side quests to complete if you like. In any of the cities, you can also just walk around and explore. All of them have different dialogue, and a lot of them will say different things depending on different items that you can show them. Their clothes, accessories, and designs all feel unique and recognizable, especially Momo with his rainbow face, or Doc, who they somehow managed to make look like mad scientist despite being a robot. Chapter 4 is unfortunately also where I find one of my first issues with the game, as this part is so much longer than the first ones and sort of drags out a bit with the back and forth. But I think it is kind of necessary just because of how huge the area you're exploring is. And you do go almost everywhere at some point, so it does feel utilized enough, so I'm more forgiving in that aspect. I'm also not a fan of the way cutscenes are presented, but I don't care enough to talk about that, so I won't. In this area, you meet Momo, one of the Outsiders. The Outsiders is a group of robots who want to go outside. Who would have thought? After some fetch quests and a bit of exploring, the next chapter has you repairing a tower to send a message to the other Outsiders, and repairing a relationship because Doc reunited with his son or whatever. The only way to leave the slums is through the Zerk-infested sewers, which you then traverse, leaving Momo behind because he's not cat-sized enough to fit through a small gap. Skill issue. Chapter 9 has the cat and B12 arriving in Ant Village, which was a very nice welcome break after what was essentially the Zerk's boss fight in the sewers. The last two chapters were a lot of running and fast-paced action, but in this village, you need only ascend several layers of a nice, peaceful treehouse, populated with several robots to talk to. After speaking to the guy at the very top, you do have a trajectory to continue the plot, but you can also just stay to do some side quests if you want, or talk to the characters scattered around. I think another reason I like this game is because it allows you to rest. Rest spots are built inside chapters, letting you relax for a while after continuous activity. There are even specific spots where your cat can lay down and just take a nap, and you can see the camera just pan out as you sit there purring, and you can stay there as long as you want. And the pauses or more gentle, cute beats that are built into the story still feel natural. The story of this game would not have the same emotional effect if it was just entirely fighting Zerks, or built entirely of finding the sad memories and discovering what happened to the humans and all that. The balance that the game has feels right to me. Midtown is the next chapter, and it's essentially the slums, but with a lot more robots to be confusing and way brighter lights. It is the one chapter in the game that I'm really not that much a fan of, and although the atmosphere is gorgeous as always, I did keep getting lost. Take my opinion on that with a grain of salt, because it takes nothing to get me turned around anywhere, but it is still a thing that I wanted to mention. The chapter also introduces the Sentinels, which replace the Zerks as the main enemies of the game. I personally don't like the Sentinels. I find them frustrating more than anything, but it doesn't remove my enjoyment of other sections of the game, so They're fine, I guess. In Midtown, your goal is to get the subway working again, as you're told it will lead you to the control room, which is your final destination, to open the sky. You meet Clementine, one of the other outsiders, and sneak into a factory to grab a battery that for some reason is what powers the subway. It's not fully... Do they just use the same kind of battery? Like the subway and the very core of it? Because you have to steal it. Like, you have to, like, do this weird puzzle and you have to steal it, but it doesn't make sense. Like, it's trapped in this little case, and you have to get rid of the case just to take the battery, and then there's, like, alarms blaring, but it doesn't really... You are then tragically betrayed by who is possibly the most suspicious-looking robot in the entire game, and then thrown in jail. Your next task is to break out of jail. So you do. There's actually a lot that happens in this chapter, but I don't remember most of it, besides the fact that B12 is captured, and you grab him, and you escape. Yay! You leave Clementine behind and manage to start the subway, and the last chapter of the game. The subway train brings you all the way to the control room, where your final objective is to bring down the walls. In the process, B12 is destroyed, but you accomplish your task. And in the huge window, you can watch as this dark ceiling slowly disappears, being replaced with sunlight again. I'm not going to ruin it for you if you haven't seen it yourself, but this is a gorgeous cutscene and makes me emotional every time I play through this game again. I also don't care that B12 died. I don't like him, and I'm not sorry. At last you have opened the sky, and the last thing your character does is walk outside. The cat stops, sits down, and looks back at the player. You get a little bit of a slow blink, and then he walks away. If you don't know cats, slow blink is a sign of trust. So the fact that it does that to us, who just brought it through this journey, intentional or not, is fucking adorable. It walks off screen, and the story is over. Something I think Stray does really well is combine familiarity with newer ideas. Even if you don't know much about cats, you probably know somebody who has one, or at the very least you know what they are, and probably some of the behavior or the stereotypes associated with them. It's predictable in an unpredictable situation, and it doesn't feel forced. Throughout the game, not only are your cat antics encouraged, they're necessary to progress the story. Your tiny size allows you to fit through gaps, help friendly characters, be the only one fast enough to evade enemies, or hide from suspicious eyes. As an example, hiding in boxes is used not only to escape sentinels, but also to sneak through a border or sneak into a shop. Some puzzles require you to scratch curtains to get into an area, or claw wires with your paws. The classic cat behavior of knocking shit over is also utilized, shoving down boards to access areas, or knocking paint cans to destroy or distract. Being a mischievous little guy is required to further the plot. You cannot separate the story of Stray from the main character, and being a cat is integral to nearly everything about it. Being a cat also has some restrictions, but rather than change the cat unrealistically or make its movements less realistic, they included B12. Cats can't hold objects in their paws, so B12 can hold them for you. Cats wouldn't be able to understand the robot language or type things in a keypad, so B12 can do that for you. This little robot guy allows you to still play as a cat while having the full range of puzzle solving and abilities. This means that even if your character movements are a little bit more restricted, the puzzles that you're solving are not. And the small parts of the game where B12 isn't available are solved without him in a way that makes sense to your limitations as a fuzzy little guy. I would also be doing this game a disservice to not mention the world design and backgrounds, which are absolutely stellar all the way through. The dead city is dark with neon signs to catch your attention. The slums are packed with detail, but not too confusing. Midtown exists, and every area that's supposed to be infected with Zurks are appropriately covered in pulsing orange threads, goop, and even eyes. Even the control room, a relatively short area given that it's the end of it, is so polished in comparison to the rest of the game that it feels as appropriately out of place as it should be now that we're so used to the rundown areas of the cities. I'm not an expert in this particular area, but I think the music is really great personally, and it adds to the emotional beats as it should. I love the characters. I love the story. I love the graphics. I love this game. There are also a lot of details I only noticed in my latest replay, or small wins, which weren't enough to warrant mentioning before, so I'll mention them now as like a little extra section. Some robots can be rubbed up against, and they'll give you a little heart emoticon and coo at you a little bit. There's even one guy in Midtown who's sleeping on a couch, and you can just jump right up and sleep on his chest for a while. Almost every robot will look at you if you meow at them. You can meow at almost any time except during specific cutscenes, and it's also used as a way to distract enemies. In the beginning section before activating B12, if you meow at the cameras, they seem to nod eagerly as if to encourage you or tell you to keep going. When your cat falls from the pipes at the very start of the game, you can hear the other cats meowing frantically, wondering where you are. And then we never go back to them. Several places in the game have little water bowls that you can stop and drink from. Certain rugs and walls can be used as a makeshift scratching post, and some doors will only be opened if you scratch on them to let the owner know that you want to come in. Some chapters have balls or toys to toss around, and there's even a paper bag in I think at least 2 chapters that inverts your movement controls when you get stuck in it until you can shake it off. This is obviously not a comprehensive list, and I encourage anyone who likes this sort of game to play and experience it for themselves. I know saying that this is a good game isn't exactly a hot take, but I just really wanted to talk about it. So if you lasted this long, thank you. My voice hurts now. Play Stray. It's a good game, and I like it. Yeah. Thanks for watching. Ultimate out.